Welcome, everybody, to this fourth roundtable in the JTB Business Travel Return to Travel series. As our world keep changing around us, we at JTB Business Travel believe that we also need to evolve, and therefore we're very excited that this fourth installment is actually an in-person live event. We believe in the power of travel to bring people together. So we're very excited that we're actually together in one room, and a huge thank you to American Airlines that welcomed us at their headquarters in Dallas to have this live event. It's an amazing privilege to share this opportunity with two quite remarkable people who today will share their insights with us on some key topics relevant for navigating the business travel landscape in the new today. So today I'm joined by Joux
Good morning.
Steve Myer from Airlines. Joux de Boo is the Managing Director for Leisure and Group Sales at American Airlines and President of American Airlines Vacation. And a lifelong aviation enthusiast, Joux started his career at British Airways in 2006, and in 2010 you moved to America and launched the Atlantic Joint Business Partnership between American Airlines, British Airways, Aviation, and Finnair. And joining American in 2014, Joux quickly held a number of roles, and most recently, I heard you led the company's partnership efforts with Japan Airlines and China Southern Airlines. But what I find really interesting is that I heard that, Joux, you visited Japan 25 times already.
That's right, and I'm waiting for the big 26. Actually, Geert, waiting for the for Japan to be open to tourists again. It's always been a great pleasure to visit Japan. I absolutely love taking a rail pass, always available at JTB, and explore the countryside of Japan. Always such a great treat.
Yeah, what attracts you in Japan? Why did you go there so often? Go back again?
Always been fascinated by the culture, the architecture, the food, of course, and I'm also a bit of a bit of a transport geek, and I just love exploring Japan by rail.
By rail, yeah. So you've used many different Shinkansen, the high-speed bullet trains.
Most of them, actually, yeah.
Well, I'd love to hear more about that. And is there one place in Japan that's still very high on your list that you would like to go to?
Yeah, I still haven't been to Hokkaido, so I'm planning a trip, maybe skiing next winter when it's available. I would love to try skiing in Japan.
Absolutely.
Have you done that before?
Actually, I lived in Hokkaido for 2 years, so I highly recommend it, both summer and winter. So I'd love to see your pictures.
Apparently, some of the best powder in the world, right?
Absolutely.
And the après ski with Japanese beer must be very nice.
Good. Steve Myer, welcome. And
thank you.
You are also a very experienced airline professional with over 22 years in the travel industry. Steve is the Regional Vice President of Global Sales for Japan Airlines and has been in the travel industry a long time. Joined Japan Airlines nearly 6 years ago, and in their current role for nearly 4 years, in which your team manages all travel agency and corporate relationships in the Americas.
That's correct. Yeah.
But Steve, I heard that another passion of yours is actually running, and especially marathons. Can you tell me more about that? What is your best marathon so far?
Yeah, so I mean, it's dangerous to ask a runner about their races because they won't stop talking about that, right? But I started in 2000, and I think that I was really active early on. And my best, most favorite marathon was running the Rock and Roll Marathon in Phoenix, Arizona. So it was a fantastic, perfect weather, and I managed to squeak in under 4 hours.
Wow. So very impressive. And I'm just trying to imagine what that means, a rock and roll marathon. So
there's bands along the way. And so it's a quite festive atmosphere, and it gets you really pumped up and helps you to get to that 26 miles.
Right? Awesome.
Yeah, it's a good time.
And is it correct? I think you've done 18 marathons, or
at least 18. I'm starting to lose track, but I think I finished 18 in 2018. So I'm gearing up to do a couple more this year, and hopefully we'll be able to run the marathon in Honolulu which is sponsored by Japan Airlines in December.
Cool. That's awesome. And so would Honolulu one be really for you the most exciting one you're still looking forward, or is there a...
I think so, yeah. But I got to admit that I'm a little bit nervous because it's hot in Honolulu. It's humid, right? So,
yeah.
But I think it'll be fun to be there with Japan Airlines as a lead sponsor. And I hear it's a really great atmosphere. So that's what I do it for.
And so no rock and roll there, but maybe some hula dancers
exactly.
around, right? Great. And I'm also hearing that you have some personal goals when it comes to running. You have a goal for this year, how many miles you want to run?
Oh, wow. I didn't realize I'd have to publicize that. Now I have to own it, right? No. So
we're gonna keep you accountable.
No, I'm aiming for 2,000 miles this year. So I'm well on my way to my goal. So just barring any injuries, I think I'll make it. So yeah, thank you. I feel like we set so many goals in business. It's fun to set them for personal attainment as well.
And I think running a marathon must have been a great preparation for running through this pandemic, because it sometimes feels like a marathon, right? Where you feel we're almost there. Your body is saying we can't go any longer, and mentally you have to tell you we're going to get there. We have to keep going. So great. Before moving on, just a brief housekeeping announcement. If you have any questions you would like to ask our panelists, you can just put those in the chat, in the tab below the audio tab, and we'll try to answer your questions during the webinar. But if not, we will make sure that we will ask our panelists to reply to those, and we'll get to those to you by email soon. So before we start asking some questions to our panelists and start our conversation, I would like to take a quick poll just to see where everybody is in terms of the return to travel. And especially, we've heard a lot about international travel. Some countries are easing restrictions, others are not. So I'm very interested what your company's expectations are about resuming international travel, long-haul travel. So if you can take some time to fill out this poll, that will get us jump-started into our conversation about the return to travel. Have you been yourself on any long-haul trips recently, or only domestic?
So I've been lucky. So I'm originally from Paris, France, and I've been able to see my family twice in the last few months after a 16 months hiatus, and it was just fantastic.
Good. Yeah. And I did travel myself once from Europe to the U.S. The plane was half empty, unfortunately. But then on my domestic flight, the plane was overbooked. So it was very interesting concept. And we'll see that, actually quite a good percentage is already traveling, over 40%.
That's great.
So that's very encouraging. Another quarter is expecting to start international travel the fourth quarter and then next year. So very good. So very important that, with people already traveling also internationally, that we discuss some topics about how the world looks differently and what your airlines are actually doing to help our travelers navigate this changed landscape. But before that, can you both share a little bit about actually what you're doing, your roles in the company? We shared your title a little bit, but what kind of issues do you work with daily? Louis, to start with you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Look, I've got the great privilege of leading a sales team at American Airlines. And our goal really is to help customers like you, JTB, but also your corporate customers, really unlock the amazing value of the American Airlines network and its partners. Our goal is to make it very easy for corporate customers, leisure travelers, to fly, travel the world, do business with a great quality of service. And that's really what we aim to do. So really, ease of doing business is our number one priority.
Great, yeah, and I've talked to Louis a little bit before, and he's extremely passionate about that. So how about you, Steve? What do you do on a daily basis? Can you give a little insight in your world?
Yeah, sure. So I think that, we are leading together, I'm leading a sales team with travel agencies and corporations, and we're trying to do the same thing that what Louis is talking about, is bringing that value proposition to our agencies and our corporate customers. And I think that one of the key things that we try to focus on is bringing up the awareness for Japan Airlines, because I think that most people in our travel industry are aware of us, but maybe not everyone who does fly is aware of us. So we also feel that in order to improve that awareness, we need to work even more closely with American Airlines, right? Because American Airlines is such a fantastic brand that is so well recognized in this market. And so we're very fortunate to work with them. So we work with them on a day-to-day basis, on an account level basis, to try to really drive that value proposition. And also we take a lot of cues from American Airlines in terms of what is relevant in this market and how we should respond. So for me, day to day, it's a lot of those kind of strategic movements to see how can we align ourselves closer and closer to our customers.
Yeah. So network, this collaboration partnership is really important for the travelers. How about the travel management companies, the TMCs that you work with? How do you feel they complete your picture of that partnership?
Yeah, well, they're vital, right? Because I think that we recognize how important corporate business is and international business in particular, not only to our bottom line, but to commerce and spreading our brand. And so, working together with JTB is just so vital to get out the message about how we can help to ease that return to travel.
Yep. Great. When we talk about that return to travel, Louis, what do you feel? Where are we today in our industry? I know that there was just a report out from Deloitte, I think, yesterday that end of this year they're predicting about around 35% compared to 2019. What can you share about what you feel where we are in the industry and where you feel we're going in the next couple of quarters?
Of course, great question. And look, I've been very encouraged by the strength in leisure travel. As a matter of fact, some of our key segments are above 2019. And when we look at our data, of course, anonymized data, we realize that a lot of leisure travelers were actually employed or had flown on corporate contracts before. And so that's telling me that people have been traveling throughout the pandemic. We're also seeing a lot of small companies and now large companies starting to resume travel. And every week we see improvements, which is really good. As a matter of fact, 47 out of our 50 top largest corporates have told us that they either started traveling or they're going to start traveling very soon, which is really good. Of course, Delta variant, we're monitoring the situation very closely, as a matter of fact, on a daily basis. But so far, we're still seeing a very good strength in terms of week-over-week recovery. So I'm hopeful for the future. I've been personally back on the road. I work in sales. I've been back on the road a month after I got double vaccinated. It's been just fantastic to recreate that interaction, that relationship with your customers, getting information, building that trust. I don't think you can do that on Zoom or Teams. And so the power of face-to-face, to me, is a competitive advantage for corporations.
Absolutely. But you're saying, Lou, you have a lot of experience also in leisure, and we've seen that leisure is really driving the return, right? Can you share that?
Absolutely, and we saw it even last summer where we started some pockets of demand really picking up. On a professional level, the last 18 months have been quite fascinating. American Airlines is a massive airline, 1,500 planes, 130,000 employees. We are a massive company, and yet we've been able, during the pandemic, to steer the ship very quickly. A few examples. In the last few quarters, we launched 150 new routes. We don't think that we would never do in normal times. For example, we started Tel Aviv. We didn't fly to Tel Aviv. And normally, when you start an ultra long-haul market, maybe you start with one market to dip your toe. Because of the pandemic, we were able to start with not just one flight to Tel Aviv, but three. We've got JFK, Miami, and Dallas starting in October. We've also announced a return to India, ultra long-haul market from JFK to Delhi, as well as Seattle to Bengaluru. And also a partnership, which I'd love to talk a little bit more about. Internationally, we've always really made the most of the power of partnerships, right?
Yeah.
Japan Airlines being a great example. How do you go seamlessly from Savannah, Georgia to Nagoya? Well, you have to take both AA and JAL. How do you go from El Paso to Sapporo? Once again, these complex itineraries are itineraries that really make sense when you have a joint venture. We have seamless pricing, a seamless experience, an easy booking experience, joint savings, of course, through your TMCs. And so that's the value of those partnerships. And so what we've done is we've taken our existing model internationally and applied it domestic in areas where, to be frank, American Airlines was a little weaker. So East Coast in particular, and West Coast. So on the East Coast, we started a big agreement with JetBlue Airways, which is actually a fabulous airline with a beautiful premium product. And then on the West Coast, we welcome Alaska, which was a long-term partner of Japan Airlines as well. We welcome Alaska Airlines as the latest One World member, unlocking a lot of benefits, complimentary upgrades, lounge access for eligible customers. And so that's been very exciting for us, really unleashing the power of partnerships. And there's even more. We deepen our partnership with Qatar Airways as well, giving our customers access to Africa, Middle East, and India. So we're very excited about where we're going with partnerships.
Good. When you talk about those partnerships, and you yourself have even a history at British Airways, how about across the Atlantic with British Airways into Europe? What do you think? There's a lot of hurdles in terms of restrictions still being in place, but what do you expect for that part of the network?
Look, it is true the UK-US market's been painful, right? The opening has been slow. We finally had some movement announced last week, and I invite everyone to look at the options to go back to business in the UK. It is doable. As a matter of fact, we've got quite a few colleagues going to London this weekend and tomorrow. I'm planning to do a business trip to London in September to reconnect with my colleagues and partners there. It's actually fairly easy. British Airways, IAG overall, is a key strategic partner. We're so grateful. And what you're going to find when you fly British Airways coming back is an elevated product, especially in business class. They've got the new club suites, which personally I can't wait to try. It's a really, really competitive business class product coming with a door. And of course, Terminal 5 at Heathrow is a fantastic connecting hub. So really excited about the UK market. I think there's going to be a lot of pent-up demand. And I can't wait to have a cup of tea, maybe at one of the fancy hotels in London.
So the network, those partnerships, seamless travel is really key. What other positive changes, Steve, would you like to see happening with this pandemic being disruptive, opening up new opportunities, right? Lou, you were saying like it's a difficult period, but it's also an exciting period because we sort of have a reset. We can rethink. What other positive changes would you like to see happen or feel that are happening already, Steve?
Yeah, I think listening to Louis talk about the leisure travel, I think that he hit on maybe something that's probably quite important and really key is that individuals that are traveling start to gain confidence in traveling. They may not be traveling for work, but they're traveling for leisure, right? Because we've been all pent up for so long. We're just busting to get out. And so you've seen Americans go all across this country. Numbers are through the roof for domestic travel, but I think that bleeds over into the confidence for a return to travel. And I think that what we've seen too is as more people return to the office, those policies will start to change, right? And now with the Delta variant, yeah, it feels like a little bit of a pause, but I think you're also starting to see, well, maybe there's more requirements about that. And that can be debated whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. But I think that ultimately that leisure travel, returning to the office, I think it starts to give people some sense of confidence. And ultimately, I think that's what's key to get people to travel again, right? Do I want to go to London or do I want to go to Japan when it's open? A lot of it's going to be about how you feel. And then I think it's up to us to do our best part to smooth out the obstacles to make it possible, right? Yeah. So I think that, and I know we're going to talk about some of those things later on, but I think those activities are what's going to help to ease the return for travel.
So that people feel safe, confident,
Absolutely.
that they've experienced it again, right? They have all kinds of ideas about how difficult it is that once we've been on the road, we know that it's doable, it's not that different, and it's very exciting again to be in the same place. And this is maybe a little bit philosophical, but what are your thoughts on sort of the philosophy of travel? Because I know that at the beginning of the pandemic, we heard a lot, we can do without travel. We can do business like this. We have the video conferencing, but I think we've all noticed, right, how we miss being together and something like that. What is your sort of philosophy of travel? Where do you see travel, play a part in humanity in our world? a big question.
Yeah, and I
know that you have your
Wait, Geert, I'm completely biased, right? Because I really believe that travel is one of the most fulfilling purpose in life. I would even go that far. I come from France. I've built a career in the U.S., spent a lot of time in Asia, developed relationship there. I don't think you can get the subtleness of the markets. I don't think you can build friendships and deep trust with us face-to-face. One of the reasons why I've been in Japan so many times was to build and strengthen that relationship with our partners at Japan Airlines, or visiting your worldwide headquarters in Tokyo, JTB. And so to me, getting that trust, building that rapport, reminding yourself that your business partners are people too, that is priceless to me and invaluable. I've been back on the road so much. Some of my competitors were not back on the road, and so it's helped me close some deals, which is really, really helpful as well from a bottom line point of view. It's both from the heart and also sometimes from the wallet too.
Yeah. Do you share that, Steve? Do you think travel is really, we kind of do without it? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. I like Louis. I think I'm a little bit biased, but I was listening to actually someone, a lawyer on NPR this morning, and he was talking about returning to the office, and he was very fair to say that I think that there are industries or there are places where it does work okay, right? I mean, if you're writing code, for example, maybe not, but I still think there is that opportunity where you need to collaborate, and that was one of the things that he talked about was that to collaborate, you really need to be able to sometimes speak over one another, sometimes argue things, and those are things that don't translate into Zoom, right? But I think that the groups that have always traveled will still have that need to travel because quite often it's salespeople or finance people or people that are trying to make deals. And I think that when you're coming to an agreement, it's just you have such a higher trust level when it's face to face. So I think it will continue to play a role. Zoom and Teams, all of that will, but I don't think it will replace it. And I think people are eager to return.
Mm-hmm. Do you also expect that for a lot of companies, for like internal meetings, a lot of companies say we've learned how to do our internal meetings with Tokyo, with London, through video conferences, so we don't need to travel for that anymore. Do you also expect that when travel is fully possible again, that people will again just start traveling for internal travel too, or do you think there's a lasting change in the travel industry that for sales and stuff, or it's a differentiator if you are in person? But what are your expectations for how companies will, in the long term, deal with internal travel?
Well, it's interesting because when we started the joint venture with both British Airways and Japan Airlines, we spent a lot of time looking at what make international projects successful, what make big ideas possible, and the number one success factor is trust. Trust between parties. Trust between companies, trust between individuals. I really don't think you can really build quality trust without meeting face-to-face. The other interesting trend is people working from home. Some companies are deciding to let people work from home. I think it's going to actually create more demand for team-building activities, maybe a team trip somewhere to Mexico, Japan, etc. So I think that's going to be very interesting. The jury's still out. But look, we are social creatures, and getting together is so important.
And I think that trust is often built in that social experience, right? You can come into a meeting and you can say what you want to say, but it's usually the meetings afterwards, the sidebars, all those type of things, whether you're just talking about baseball or you're just going to have a drink, that's where you start to really know the person that you're dealing with, right? And so I think you're right. I think that's key. It's very important.
That's right. I need those late night evenings at different bars in Tokyo, packing up everyone, karaoke as well. Is always a success.
Absolutely. And we're experiencing it here, right? There's nothing like doing this like this.
Absolutely.
It's that thrill that I'm feeling that is unique. Yeah. But there's still a lot of hurdles out there, right? For travelers to do it. Like we already discussed a little bit, like people getting confidence by just doing it. For leisure travel maybe first, but there's still all those regulations, rules out there. What do you feel is really the biggest hurdle now, and what needs to be done to for people to with ease again be able to hit the road as a business traveler?
Yeah, I think I feel we need to do everything in our power to really encourage vaccination. It really is a way out of this pandemic. At American Airlines, we've offered incentives to our employees to get vaccinated, including an extra vacation day. I think that is so critical to safely return to travel. And then it's really working collaboratively to make travel easy again. We'll talk a little bit more about VeriFly maybe later. Yeah. But I really feel that's where making travel again is easy again is something that by working together between the airlines, the partner airlines, and a world-class TMC like JTB, that's where we add so much value and make it easier for everyone to go back on the road.
But Steve, there's also people that are worried, right, about the vaccinations. Like there can be reasons why people cannot get vaccinated.
Sure.
Can I still travel? Would Japan Airlines or American Airlines still allow me on the plane? What would you say to people that have that concern?
Yeah, I think that there's always going to be various different options to fly, right? But I think that what it comes down to when you were talking about what are the hurdles or what needs to be cleared out yet is I still think that it's some type of a standardization of not only how we communicate the information, whether it's a negative test or whether it's a vaccination, right? And I know we'll hit on the technology side of it later, but I think some type of a standardization amongst governments as well to come to some understanding, right? I think that to be fair, governments don't often turn on a dime very easily, right? But there's such a different level of requirement from country to country to country, right? Europe was unified, right? But now it's all individual country rules again, right? And so I think that's the kind of piece that needs to overcome. But I don't think it's necessarily a vaccine mandate. I think that would be one of the ideals, but I just think there will be other hurdles that people will have to go through. But I think it'll still be possible, right? But I think it's smoothing out all those kind of obstacles, standardizing things amongst governments to be able to make vaccinated or, negative testing people travel easily. And I think we saw some of that discussion early on when we talked about bridges and we talked about bubbles, and then, spike after spike, it seems like those things kind of fall to the wayside, but I still think that they will come back, and I think that there will be some of that standardization eventually. We're all learning to live with this long term. TSA came in after 9/11, right? Yeah. And so now whatever health passport or whatever that requirement is, I think that'll be kind of the new requirement. Mm-hmm. But I think the technology is there to make it possible. Yeah. It's just standardizing it.
Exactly, right? Because it's a little bit quiet. A couple of months ago, we heard a lot about the health passports, the common pass, the other ones. American Airlines is working with VeriFly. Can you share a little bit more about that? How you feel that's going to make a difference?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, great question. Look, for years we've been in the business of checking documentations at international checking. We check passports, we check visas, and then about a year ago we got asked to check testing requirements. Is it an antigen? Is it a PCR? Is it a proof of vaccinations? Which vaccine are in, which vaccine are out? And so what we saw very quickly, especially at Miami Airport very early on, was a very long lines. The average transaction time of a check-in transaction went from 3 minutes to 15 minutes, which was not manageable. And people would come with a lot of paper. They would come to the airport with the wrong test. And so what we did is taking all of that document verification online in the cloud. Mm-hmm. So we ask people to download VeriFly, and they can upload all of their documents ahead on the app, and then they will get a QR code once their documents have been successfully checked by professionals who are not in an airport environment, right, and not stressed out. And so it takes a lot of pressure off our airport employees or airport colleagues. And more importantly for travelers, if you do the VeriFly, we're going to tell you that maybe you have the wrong test, and maybe you have a chance to redo that test. And it's been very successful. VeriFly is run by a third-party data company that has an expertise in highly secure data. And so that's why we were very happy to work with them. Very secure data, that's the DNA of their business. And it's been very successful for us. I've used it many times to go in and out of the U.S. A great experience.
Good. So making it really easy for travelers not to forget anything, having it in one place, making it easier at the airport experience. There's a question from one of the people in the audience about the need of social distancing, which is expected to remain for some time, especially considering the Delta variant and further mutations. How is that affecting the airport experience? So, we've seen when we travel that there are places at the airport are pretty crowded. Lines. So, what are your experience or thoughts on this about the social distancing at the airport?
Boy, that's a touchy one. Thank you. I mean, I think we talk about it, and it was something that was really implemented, and you still see the stickers on the floor, and sometimes they're getting curled up and coming off. Or, I think the reality is in a crowded space, an airport with the volumes that we're seeing, it's not that realistic to expect everybody. I'm not even sure if it's mathematically possible to be 6 feet apart, right? But I think that maybe the social distancing is not just that physical requirement, but is just kind of respecting everybody's space, doing the proper thing, whether it's wearing masks and taking care of your hands, and also I think more touchless type of opportunities to transport through the airport, right? So JAL is working on something we call a Face Express. It's a biometric way so that once you check in and your face is there, it transports you every step of the way, and you don't really have to touch anything, right? So I think that aspect of social distance where technology can answer it will continue. But honestly, the 6 feet, I think that's quite a challenge.
Yeah, and I can understand the concern, right? In the beginning of the pandemic, we heard all about how flying is safe and because of the environment on the plane, but the airport is really a place, and I've experienced too, where it's, just before boarding, it's just crowded and it's virtually impossible to keep that distance. So that can be definitely something where technology can also maybe change the way that we go through that process of from check-in or security to boarding. Yeah, interesting. Something else that I've heard that Japan Airlines is really supporting the health of your travelers. I've heard about your Sky Wellness Kitchen menu in collaboration with Tainta. Can you share a little bit more about that?
I will try. Yes. So Japan Airlines, we really do so many fascinating things. We actually have an innovation lab not far from our headquarters, and we're constantly looking at how do we solve different problems, right? So one of the things that came up very important to travelers in the surveys that we did, even pre-pandemic time, was when you're traveling for business, international travel and domestically, what's a key concern of yours? And it's health and wellness. The one thing, talking about running and those things, I found it easy to keep a running schedule when I'm working at home every day or, working locally and not traveling. But when you travel, that disrupts your routine, and it's hard to make healthy choices, right? So our partnership has just looked at, creating meal options that, not only are healthy, but also inform you about how to make healthy choices, right? And the partnership is with Tanita, which some people may recognize that name because they do body weight measurements, and they're really big on fat scale measurements as well. And they even do a survey to Americans to see how important they think that is, and most Americans think it's not that important what your fat ratio is, right? But turns out it is important for health, right? So in this meal, we put together a lot of information, not only healthy meals, whether it's exercising, on board, different things that you can do to maintain your healthness, even just in the journey and after the journey, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was interesting. I read that, the ingredients or the type of food are also designed to make you chew really well, because that's
it's a form of exercise.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Super interesting. And I was thinking when you were saying about, how you're doing that, the other night I stayed at a hotel, and when I checked in, they gave me a bottle of water, but they also offered me a chocolate bar. So maybe they should talk to Japan Airlines about healthier choices.
They should.
For the business travel.
I know, I love DoubleTree, but those cookies they're decadent.
Yeah, I definitely did enjoy it, but good. So before moving on to two other key topics, we want to talk about technology and about sustainability. We want to take a quick poll again because we want to understand from you all When travel resumes, what do you think are going to be the key priorities? When we're hit the road again, what is your company especially focusing on? There are different things on the screen. We'd love to see what your expectations are here. Louis, what do you do when we talk about health to stay healthy? You travel a lot, or you will travel a lot again, hopefully. Do you have any tips for frequent travelers to stay healthy?
For me, it starts with sleep. Actually,
Really?
sleeping well on the road is very important. I tend to sleep a lot on planes. As a matter of fact, the Japan Airlines Sky Suite in business class is one of my favorite places to rest. Traveling to Asia is actually, it's a long flight. And so I really think that actually travel policies can make a big difference to well-being. Business class is not just luxury, it's actually a well-being in my view. You can have a successful business trip to Tokyo. You'll arrive there rested, but more importantly, on your Friday morning flight, right, from Narita, Haneda, back to the U.S., you're going to spend some time with your family, your kids. Being rested is actually really helpful. So I think business class makes a lot of business sense from a well-being point of view.
Good. So we see from the results that actually 50% of the respondents say that duty of care is going to be a key topic, which we fully understand. Cost saving, the seamless travel experience that we just talked about is about 50%. And just 5% sustainability, which is surprising because we read so much about it, and we'll definitely talk about that. But thanks for that. So we'll come back to sustainability, but I first want to ask you about technology, right? Pandemic has been a disruption, but it's been also an opportunity for, I think, new technologies to be accelerated in terms of introduction. What do you think, Louis, how technology will play a part in improving and enhancing the customer experience, the traveler experience?
Yeah, and look, I'll start with the facts. The airline industry was an early adopter of technology, and a lot of the technology that still drives a lot of our systems were developed in the 60s, even the 50s, right? And so you look at the way we display options for classes of service, for example, where we have many more options now available to travelers. And so for us, it's really giving the right offers to the right customer at the right time. And so we'll talk maybe a little bit about NDCs and new distribution capability. That's really giving more power, more empowerment to our travel managers, to our travelers, to find the right offers that works for them.
Can you share more about NDC, new distribution capability? What is that? What does it bring? Can you explain to us?
Yeah, it took me a long time to get it, but essentially, look, airline technologies was once again based in the 70s. And so the analogy I like to use actually here, I've got some props. VGA cable. Everyone is familiar with the VGA cable, right? You can display some content on your screen. It won't be high definition. The sound won't be there, so you need to plug another cable to get the sound. But look, it works. But if you want high definition, HDMI is actually the way of the future. You're going to have just one cable, it's clean, you have rich content. And so NDC is essentially a better pipe. It's essentially the HDMI cable that links airline content with the suppliers or the TMCs like JTB. So, for example, having a premium seat, having a bulkhead seat or maybe an exit row seat, having early boarding. These are not things that you can get through the old technology. But with NDC, we can give you rich offers. So you have all your options to customize your trip at your fingertip. And it just makes a lot of sense. And we're very proud to work with key GDSs. For us, NDC is not a punitive thing. We're not trying to reduce cost of sale. We're really trying to enrich the offers available to customers. Very much like your Netflix on HDMI.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Steve, I know NDC within the industry, we've been talking about it for a long time, but it feels like, this is really where the stage where the traveler is going to start experiencing the benefits, more personalized content, because the airlines sort of start knowing the traveler, right? That's right. Part of it. There's also concerns, right? Maybe the airline knows too much about it, about me or something like that. How would you speak to those concerns of travelers that things like, I don't want to, give all my everything to the airline.
I feel like you're giving me the hard question. but it's because I can handle it, I hope.
Yes.
So, it's an interesting concern, right? I think listening to Louis describe NDC, I think he's right on point, and I think that what NDC can bring to TMC, through JTB and your corporate customers is that same experience that individual consumers have when they're buying direct, right? So that's what's missing out, and they should have that. But I think also what comes with that, speaking to your point, is some of that information security that your corporation would require, right? And that you can provide as the booking tool, whether it's through JTB or someone else. With the NDC content, you can still have that security, and you can still mandate that kind of control, right? Gdpr is still huge, it's still prevalent, right? And we see even in California a little bit more tighter restrictions than maybe the rest of the nation. I'm from California, so I'm familiar with it. But I think that will all still be in play, and I think because you bring NDC into that system, duty of care being most important, you'll have that opportunity to make it much more secure than if someone went just on their own without managed travel, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And some other concern, and I'll ask Louis then.
Good.
Not sure if it's a difficult question, but another concern is, of course, like compliance, right? The NDC makes it possible to have very personalized bundles. You know that your traveler likes, a certain seat or like a sort of lounge access with his package. Companies are concerned, right? I have my policies, and the airline is trying to lure my travelers with all kinds of ancillaries that maybe are not as common. Mm-hmm. What do you say about that, about NDC and compliance? And
I would say it's quite the opposite. I would say, because NDC at the point of booking, point of ticketing, you got all the information. You can customize the trip, the one transaction, and you got, for example, your preferred seats. Is that in your policy? As opposed to the old system where you issue your ticket and then people might go on the website to buy extra seats, etc. It goes through the expense reports, not coded the right way. So I actually think it's actually more control in the hand of the travel managers. And I've heard that feedback actually quite a bit from key corporates.
Yeah. So and how do you see the role of a TMC like JTB Business Travel? Because often NDC is associated with the airlines wanting to directly go to travelers. Do you see that NDC is something where we actually should partner together?
Mm-hmm. I think there might be a confusion in the marketplace, because I think some airlines have tried to use NDC as a way to reduce cost of sale, impose surcharge. That's not our model at all at American Airlines. For us, it's really an evolution of 1970s technology to much more modern technology. Give you more richer information, better options on our offers. So I think there's a bit of confusion in the marketplace. For us, it only makes the travel managers and the TMCs more in control to compare offers across airlines, which is a key role that you provide on behalf of your customers.
Well, and I think it goes back to what we were talking about before. It's that technology can't replace trust.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that's what having a TMC like JTB, I pick up and I can call that agent. That's somebody that I can trust. And now I have the technology to deliver everything that I want and that the corporation allows or mandates. But I've got somebody that I'm working with. Yeah, even if it is on my phone, but the ultimate answer is, right, like when there's a problem, can I call somebody that I trust that can help me? And I think that's why the TMC will still play a vital role.
Great. Yeah, trust seems to be a key word coming back today a lot, but that's great. And we're excited at JTB too. We work closely with our technology partner Sabre and American Airlines, testing also NDC, so that should be soon hopefully also available to our travelers. Something else, and it didn't seem a big topic for our audience today, but when we listen to a lot of corporate and airline partners, sustainability is a key topic when we exit the pandemic. So we want to hear your insights into a little bit into this topic. Great news, I think, for our planet. The travel industry hasn't been always the front runner when it comes to contributing to environmental sustainable solutions, but a lot is happening, and I guess the pandemic has also accelerated that in some ways. Can you tell a little bit more about your plans and what your companies, your airlines are doing in sustainability? And Louis, I would like to ask you, especially, I read something super interesting about American Airlines investing in the future of aviation by announcing agreement to pre-order $1 billion worth of new type of aircraft designed to fly over congested cities. Can you share more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Electric aircraft, electrification of the aviation industry is a key priority for American Airlines. But it's broader than that. Sustainability is really important, not just for customers, but also employees as well. I wouldn't be working for American Airlines if I didn't feel that American Airlines is playing a big role in having a very strong strategy to really combat climate change, because climate change is a real threat to our planet. And so American Airlines got a bold plan to go to net zero by 2050. And that's not just a bold plan. We actually have agreed to set some targets, science-based targets, to reduce emissions throughout that time frame, with 2035 as a key milestone for us. What are we going to do about that? So you mentioned the electric aircraft. We've invested in a startup in the UK called Vertical Aerospace that's making the X4 electric aircraft. And that's an aircraft that's got limited range and limited capacity. But what's really exciting is Vertical Aerospace is really at the forefront of the electrification of the aviation industry. We know that the jet fuel is by far the largest source of emissions. We've done a lot to really cut our emissions. I love this model. It's a Boeing 787, wings made in Japan. The engine's beautiful. What's really fantastic is that this plane has got 15% less fuel emissions, CO2 emissions, than the aircraft it replaced. As a matter of fact, in the last year, one of the good things about the pandemic as well is we waved goodbye to 150 aircraft. And they were not efficient aircraft. Those 757s, for example, still flew domestically. They are gone, and they're replaced by planes like the A321neo that has got 15%, 16% less fuel emissions. And so that's really, really important. I could speak about this for hours. Sustainable aviation fuel, we could probably do a webinar just on sustainable aviation fuel, because that's quite fascinating. Yeah. But I'm really, really happy to work for a company that takes this very, very seriously. It comes right from the top, airline. And there's more to come. There's more to come.
Yeah, very exciting, those vertical aircraft, right? So that's sort of a new feeder model also.
Urban mobility, of course. So urban mobility, providing alternative mobility options. But what I'm really excited is really making progress on the emerging field of electrification of aviation. That is a real opportunity.
Yeah, very exciting. So, I love that good news during the pandemic that we are dreaming about a different future for aviation too, right? Again, because we talked about how important travel is to humanity and to a safer, happier world. And so these are exciting issues. How about Japan Airlines, Steve? I know that you also have pledged carbon neutrality by 2050. Can you share a little bit about some of the initiatives happening at Japan Airlines?
Absolutely. I think that similar to Louis and American Airlines, getting to net zero by 2050 is a really high goal, but I think that we have the capability to get there. And we're doing the same things in terms of looking at aircraft. It's a huge, huge part of it, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you just mentioned 15%, but when you multiply that 15%, it's really big, right? So that's a key thing that we're doing. And the other thing that we're doing is looking at our daily operations. How do we, use APU unit on the ground at the airport? If you ever wonder when you get on the plane, like why are all the shades drawn? Like, well, it helps to keep the plane cool. Reduce use of alternative power source, and ultimately also just having a carbon offset program and having initiatives that work with that you can know that you're spending money towards that. And I know that that's a big part of it with the collaborations that we see. And then we have been working on sustainable aviation fuel for quite some time. Japan Airlines first started using some sustainable aviation fuel back in 2019 on our flights to San Francisco and Tokyo. And I feel like that wasn't even a big buzz at that time, right? But now it's really starting to catch on. And we've taken flights also from Haneda to Fukuoka with sustainable aviation fuel. And one of the odd things that I saw was that we are taking old T-shirts and turning them into sustainable aviation fuel. So I know I have a lot of old T-shirts laying around, and it seems like such a crazy idea, but it's ideas like that not only are you using sustainable aviation fuel, but you're taking it from a source that's being reused, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's more exciting ideas to come, and I think that we will just continue to improve on those ideas because we're only sitting here in 2021, right? So I think by 2050 it'll be quite remarkable.
But when it comes to sustainable aviation fuel, the airlines taking initiatives, but it's a huge task to bring on that change. So what would you say to the companies, the corporations that are joining us today, on how can we partner to make this happen? How do you see that collaboration with your TMC and their clients to make this change happen?
Yeah, I think it's really supporting innovations. Right now, as we speak, we don't have all the necessary technologies to get to net zero by 2050. So we've got a massive industry-wide imperative to really create those technologies. For us, it's that $25 million proposed investment in vertical aerospace, and we need to do much more of that. So I would encourage all companies to really look at their R&D pipeline, investment opportunities, because technology, R&D is the answer. And it's going to be, especially for aviation, right? The aviation, the jet fuel is such a cornerstone of our model, the jet engine. Replacing that model is going to take a lot of innovations and a lot of investment.
So really, collaboration is needed.
Yeah, I think that's a really good answer, Louis. And Japan Airlines, we have a team up in Palo Alto that is just specifically doing that, right? They're looking around at innovations and seeing who can we partner with, how can we partner to create a better end result, especially something more sustainable, and along with other innovations, right? Yeah. So we invite our corporate customers as well to collaborate with us.
Yeah, and a great example. I don't know if you guys. So we have 787s, which is one of the most remarkable aircraft. And if you remember, back in the early 2000s, the 787 was supposed to be the Sonic Cruiser, so an aircraft that flew a little bit faster. And Boeing pumped a lot of billions in R&D, and then took that technology, and instead of making the plane faster, they decided to make it more efficient. 7E7, right? 7 efficient. And we're so grateful for the results. And that's the type of thinking we need to encourage. I think there's much more we can do as an industry. Investment's a key. R&D is a key to go.
Yeah. And little steps can go a long way. I was reminded when you talk about 15%, right? It may not sound a lot, but then we're here at the American Airlines, the headquarters in Dallas, really close to Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. And you were sharing that you have 900 American flights taking off every day here. So 15% can make a big difference, right? If you
it does. It adds up. And you mentioned Dallas, DFW. I invite you to look at the DFW website. It is one of the most progressive airports in the world in terms of sustainability. It's got the highest rating according to ICAO, ACI, in terms of impact on global warming and CO2 emissions. So we're very proud of our big partner hub here.
Great. So really a call to action also to work together, not just in the industry, but with our corporate partners.
That's right.
To make this happen.
And it's something that really surprised me, actually, when I moved to Texas from the UK and New York. There's actually a booming tech sector that really looks at sustainability in Texas. American Airlines playing a big role, of course, with our sustainability initiatives, but the airport as well. And then there's a lot of like solar and wind power across Texas as well. So more needs to be done, but encouraged.
Yeah, and opportunities for maybe new startups too, as you were talking about the vertical fly, but you're talking about what's happening in Palo Alto, young companies that have great new ideas that we need to collaborate with.
Definitely.
Yeah, awesome. We are almost nearing the end, so I really want to quickly hear your insights and any other exciting new things that you feel are happening soon. At JTB, for instance, we have some new services. We're partnering with Sherpa. I know American Airlines is also partnering with Sherpa. Those are things. What other exciting things or dreams do you have for our world or for customers that are traveling? Let me look into your future.
Yeah, well, I think it's hard to answer on the spot. I would say, look, we talked a lot about investments. We talked about global warming. We talked about COVID as well, and it's back to science, right? I'm so grateful for the scientists. I studied business, not science, right? But I'm so grateful for all these scientists who've helped us with COVID so far, and who are going to help us with global warming later on. So to me, that's great. And working for an airline, I know that those scientists share ideas through the power of travel, and so I'm really excited about that. And I guess we play a small part in making progress happen. And those face-to-face meetings really help innovation.
Absolutely.
What about you, Steve? If we look in the future, what's something that you look forward to that you'll expect to happen?
Yeah, so I think that I was just thinking, okay, before I retire, what would I love to see happen, right? I've still got probably 15 years, hopefully. And I think that I am really excited about the NDC and the prospect of it, right? Because I'm excited about where it can take us as individual travelers. I'm being selfish here, right? And one of the things that I see in the future that doesn't get talked about much is the idea of a super PNR, of blockchain technology, so that if I have my flight on American Airlines to Tokyo and booked through JTB, and then you book my rail pass and everything, it's all in one PNR, right? I don't have to go. I know I have everything on my phone. I'm very grateful, right? But you don't have to go and look for everything in the email and everything like that. If we can get to that someday in the future, and I don't know how far away that is, but I believe it's possible. Mm-hmm. So that's something that I'm personally excited about. And for Japan Airlines, we're still, just establishing the foundations for NDC and working closely with American Airlines. But I think that is a long-term future, and maybe 10, 15 years, hopefully less.
One stop, more seamless. Yeah. Something else that technology is changing. You're going to stop the American Way magazine this year. Is that being replaced by a virtual magazine, or?
Yeah. So you look inside magazines where I couldn't write and much loved, but we really feel strongly that the priority right now is to offer all of our customers great content with our high-speed Wi-Fi. And we've done so much partnership to really create amazing content. We have the Oprah Book Club. We have Apple TV shows on board. We have Apple Music. We have a bit of an emerging partnership with everything Apple on our flights, and that's the type of entertainment that I believe our customers expect. Yesterday, for the younger customers, we actually announced a partnership with TikTok, so you can watch TikTok videos in flight as well. So Geert, I know you'll be doing that on your flight back.
TikTok, is that what you're saying, really? Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you so much, Louis, Steve. It's been amazing to be here at American Airlines. Thank you so much for hosting us here. Very exciting to meet in person. Yeah. I hope a lot of our people in the audience today, too, have their travel booked or will booking and same experience. We do have some exciting new webinars coming up with a focus, again, on technology, with a key thing today that we know that technology is going to drive the change. We have great partnerships at JTB Business Travel, and on August 19th, we'll have a Tech Talks with Cerium, travel data company. That's going to be very interesting to hear their take on what's happening from a data perspective, and also it's going to talk about how technology and data will actually help you and your travelers navigate disruptions and, again, make the travel experience better. So thank you so much for joining us today. Let us know if you have any additional questions. You can let us know through our website, and we'll make sure that our panelists get back to you with the questions that weren't answered today. And we look forward to seeing you, and especially to meeting you in person soon.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.